auch begeistert von diesem Stadion. Also Kompliment auch an die Stadt Jena, an den Club, jetzt hier so ein Stadion mitgebaut zu haben. Wunderbar.
Jetzt geben wir hier den Startschuss quasi für die letzte Vorbereitungsphase. Es wird teilweise noch gespielt, das Champions-League-Finale steht noch an. Die Spieler von Bayern 04 Leverkusen haben ja in deinem Beisein am Samstag erfolgreich das Double klar gemacht. Kannst du jetzt schon sagen, so nach den ersten Eindrücken von Blankenhain von gestern, vielleicht auch von heute Vormittag, was für ein Geist ist da jetzt schon zu sehen, mit welchem Spirit gehen wir in diesen Sommer?
Ja, eigentlich sehr optimistisch, vor allem nach den letzten beiden Spielen, muss man einfach sagen. Das war wunderbar anzuschauen, wie sich die Mannschaft von Julian präsentiert hat. Besser geht es nicht gegen zwei Top-Nationen. Das wollen wir natürlich auch in den nächsten Freundschaftsspielen. Wir haben noch 2 Freundschaftsspiele, am 3. und am 7. Juni. Wollen wir es natürlich bestätigen, um dann wirklich auch diese Euphorie mitzunehmen in das Turnier zum Eröffnungsspiel hin. Gegen die Schotten, da müssen wir auch topfit sein zum richtigen Zeitpunkt, auch wenn der ein oder andere Spieler jetzt noch fehlt zu diesem jetzigen Zeitpunkt. Ich glaube auch, die Spieler, die heute hier sind, werdet ihr alle sehen, werdet ihr begeistert sein, was die Jungs alle können.
Jetzt ist so eine öffentliche Trainingseinheit natürlich für die Fans immer eine tolle Angelegenheit. Du hast ja auch sehr viel Werbung dafür gemacht, dass wir genau hier heute sind. Was werden die Fans, was werden die Zuschauerinnen und Zuschauer heute Nachmittag hier erleben? Wie viel kann man machen in so einer öffentlichen Trainingseinheit? Worauf könnte man möglicherweise achten? Was gibt es für Geheimtipps?
Ja, so viele Geheimnisse gibt es ja gar nicht. Natürlich gibt es gewisse Trainingsabläufe und Programme. Und man sieht ja schon, was einige Co-Trainer hier schon aufgebaut haben. Es wird natürlich auch mit Bällen logischerweise trainiert, mit Toren. Es werden viele Tore fallen. Spielformen, wo auch alle Zuschauer auf ihre Kosten kommen. Große Paraden, wunderschöne Tore. Aber natürlich auch schon ein bisschen sich vernünftig einzuspielen, einzutrainieren, auch wenn es in knapp 3 Wochen erst das erste Spiel ist. Aber wir wollen schon heute hier eine vernünftige Trainingseinheit vonstatten bringen.
Dann würde ich gerne den quasi Gastgeber auch nochmal zu Wort kommen lassen. Herr Penzler-Bayer, das ist hier der Startschuss quasi für eine Reise durch diesen Sommer mit der deutschen Nationalmannschaft, die uns lange tragen soll, idealerweise bis zum 14. Juli zum Endspiel in Berlin. Thüringen ein gutes Pflaster und Sie haben offensichtlich auch einen guten Draht nach oben und haben für perfekte Wetterbedingungen gesorgt.
Ja gut, wir tun in Thüringen eigentlich immer unser Bestes, damit sich unsere Gäste hier auch tatsächlich wohlfühlen. Insofern hat auch das funktioniert. Ja, wir freuen uns natürlich, Rudi hat es eben schon gesagt, auch wenn wir selber kein WM-Standort sind, dass wir die Möglichkeit haben, die Nationalmannschaft hier in unserem Bundesland zu begrüßen. Und wir hoffen und wünschen natürlich, Rudi, dass ihr hier die optimalen Bedingungen für eine optimale Vorbereitung habt, der Startschuss hier fällt und das Ganze dann auch ein optimales Ende nimmt, sprich also mindestens erstmal der Einzug ins Finale.
Das wäre ja schon mal ein guter Anfang und dann darf ich mich bei Ihnen schon mal bedanken. Rudi, du bleibst bitte noch einen Moment bei mir, denn es gab oder gibt eine Aktion, das DFB-Punktespiel und wir wollen gerne diese Gelegenheit nutzen, hier auch ein paar erste Prämien zu vergeben. Ist eine ganz interessante Geschichte. Wir gucken uns mal einen kurzen Film an, wie es funktioniert und dann freue ich mich sehr, dass wir gleich einen Trikotsatz übergeben dürfen.
Das DFB-Punktespiel für euren Verein.
So, mehr als 24.000 Amateurvereine in Deutschland konnten sich registrieren. Viele, viele aus dem thüringischen Fußballverband sind dabei und heute können wir einen Trikotsatz übergeben aus den Händen von Rudi Völler und zwar an den SV Deube aus Großliebringen im Ilmkreis. Kommt gerne ein bisschen zu uns und dann machen wir hier die offizielle Übergabe. Die Aktion haben wir gerade gesehen, funktioniert so, die Vereine können Maßnahmen durchführen mit dem DFB zusammen und dadurch Punkte sammeln und dadurch sammelt man möglicherweise am Ende Prämien. Minitore gibt es zum Beispiel oder, sehen wir hier gerade, kompletter Trikotsatz. SV Deube Groß-Liebringen steht schon drauf. Jetzt machen wir noch ein schönes Foto und mit Ihnen Applaus, meine Damen und Herren, strahlen. So, die Nationalmannschaft ist auf den letzten Metern, wird hier in Kürze eintreffen, aber ein paar sind schon dabei, die eine ganz besondere Beziehung haben, nicht nur zum DFB, sondern vor allem auch zu diesem Ort hier. Ich freue mich sehr, ein paar Allstars hier zu begrüßen, die es sich nicht haben nehmen lassen, zu diesem öffentlichen Training dazuzukommen. Bernd Schneider ist bei uns, Schnicks Vize-Weltmeister von 2002 und WM-Dritter von 2006. Der kann uns mit Sicherheit gleich ein bisschen was über das Sommermärchen erzählen. Das wollen wir ja in diesem Jahr so wiederholen, vielleicht sogar noch mit einer Umdrehung mehr. Mal gucken, was so möglich ist. Ich freue mich sehr, dass Nils Petersen hier ist, der erfolgreichste Joker in der Bundesliga-Geschichte. Der wird uns vielleicht auch ein bisschen was erzählen können, worauf es ankommt beim Turnier. Und Perry Bräutigam, der eine lange, lange Geschichte hier beim FC Carl Zeiss Jena hat, von 82 bis 94, fast 300 Spiele. Perry, wie ist das? Ist das sowas wie ein Nachhausekommen für dich? Wie fühlt sich das an, auch wenn das Stadion jetzt natürlich ein klitzekleines bisschen anders aussieht als zu deiner Zeit?
Also es war eine tolle Zeit, die ich hier in Jena erlebt habe, als mich Hans Meyer 82 nach Jena geholt hat. Und man schaut immer hin, leider sind die Wege dann auseinandergegangen nach der Wende, aber man schaut immer hin und guckt immer dahin, wo man sich sehr wohl gefühlt hat. Ja, ich habe hier tolle Spiele gemacht in der Oberliga, in der zweiten Liga, bin hier zum Auswahlspieler geworden der DDR-Nationalmannschaft. Und deswegen schaut man gerne hin und ich wünsche den Zeiss-Janern alles Gute, dass sie bald möglichst wieder hochkommen in die dritte Liga erstmal, weil wir gehören einfach, oder Jena gehört einfach auch in die zweite Liga mindestens. Und das wünsche ich von ganzem Herzen und da schaut man, wie gesagt, all die Jahre immer wieder hin.
Vor allem mit diesem Stadion jetzt. Aber gucken wir auch auf die Nationalmannschaft. Was ist mit deinem Bauchgefühl, was sagt deine EM-Stimmung zum jetzigen Zeitpunkt?
Ja, es war eine Zeit, wo es nicht so gut aussah. Dann hat man einen neuen Trainer installiert und ja, ich glaube, dass wir ein schönes Sommermärchen wiederholen können. Also die Stimmung, wir sind ja in Leipzig Austragungsort von sehr guten Spielen auch und da merkst du schon, wie alles euphorisiert ist. Wir haben eine gute Mannschaft. Der Toni Groß ist zurückgekommen, ganz wichtig für die Mannschaft, aber ich glaube, dass die Jungs dort eine gute EM spielen, eine gute Heim-EM spielen. Mit der Unterstützung der Fans werden sie immer besser dann ins Turnier kommen, so wie es für Deutschland immer gewesen ist. Und dann wünsche ich uns allen nach all diesen mit Corona, mit diesen ganzen politischen, dass wir einfach wieder so ein schönes Sommermärchen, eine Gemeinsamkeit erleben dürfen hier in Deutschland, wie es 2006 schon einmal gewesen ist, wo wir uns als Deutschland eben offen und frei präsentieren und das wünsche ich den Menschen dieses Landes.
Schön, dass du da bist. Vielen, vielen Dank. Herzlich willkommen nochmal, Perry Bräutigam. So, Bernd Schneider, angesprochen gerade schon von Perry, das Sommermärchen 2006. Mit welchen Erinnerungen guckst du zurück auf diesen Sommer, der ja bis auf das Halbfinale eigentlich, wenn man so will, ein fast perfekter Sommer war?
Ja, insgesamt ist das eine komplett schöne Erinnerung für mich gewesen, die ich heute noch im Herzen trage, im Kopf trage, mitnehme. Und ich hoffe, die Jungs kommen weiter als wir damals, nicht nur bis ins Halbfinale.
Von 91 bis 98 hast du in Jena gespielt. Mit welchen Erinnerungen kommst du zurück?
Mit schönen Erinnerungen. Ich wohne hier in Jena. Ja. Ist meine Heimat, mein Verein, wo ich aufgewachsen bin, dem Verein, wo ich viel zu verdanken habe, wo meine Karriere gestartet ist, vielen Trainern, vielen Leuten, die mich gepusht haben, die mich nach vorne gebracht haben, wo ich da wirklich sehr, sehr dankbar bin und ich hoffe, Perry hat es glaube ich eben auch schon mal gesagt, dass der Verein irgendwann mal wieder höher spielt als nur in der 4. Liga.
Also Rückenwind auch von dir. Vielen Dank, dass du heute hier mit ins Stadion gekommen bist. Bernd Schneider. So, Nils, altersmäßig, karrieremäßig bist du noch am nächsten dran am Team, aber trotzdem sei mir die Frage erlaubt, wie fühlt es sich denn an im Unruhestand des ehemaligen Profifußballers?
Also in erster Linie freue ich mich, heute hier sein zu dürfen und im nächsten Schritt bin ich gar nicht böse, dass ich heute nicht trainieren muss, dass die anderen Jungs heute die Schuhe schnüren können und ich dann schön von außen das Ganze beurteilen kann. Ja, das macht natürlich dann auch ein bisschen mehr Spaß, als hier schwitzen zu müssen.
Was glaubst du denn, die Mannschaft ist jetzt seit gestern zumindest in Teilen zusammen, dann gibt es nächste Woche den Umzug dann auf das Gelände von Adidas und dann sind wir ja schon fast dran. 2 Spiele noch, dann ist Eröffnungsspiel. Was ist in dieser Phase jetzt wichtig, so aus deiner Erfahrung als ehemaliger Nationalspieler?
Ja, für die Jungs, die jetzt schon dabei sind, ich glaube, die können den Tag X gar nicht genug herbeisehen, dass es endlich losgeht. Ich glaube, man spürt, dass diese Euphorie im Land wächst. Wir sehen es heute, innerhalb von 10 Minuten waren die Tickets vergriffen. Das Land hat Bock auf die Jungs und ich glaube, die Jungs haben auch Bock, irgendwie ein gutes Turnier zu spielen. Vielleicht auch die letzten Jahre so ein bisschen vergessen zu machen und deswegen haben wir, glaube ich, alle so viel Hoffnung und deswegen kann es gar nicht früh genug losgehen.
Okay, dann habe ich schon gehört, dass die Mannschaft jetzt gleich hier bei uns ist. Insofern freue ich mich, dass ihr hier seid, damit ihr auch sauber ausgestattet seid fürs Turnier. Haben wir uns nicht nehmen lassen. Komm rüber, dass ihr noch mit aktuellen Trikots ausgestattet werdet aus den Händen von Rudi Völler bzw. Marlene Hassinger. Und damit seid ihr bestens präpariert. Vielen, vielen Dank. Nochmal einen Riesenapplaus für unsere Allstars. Bernd Schneider, Nils Petersen und Perry Bräutigam. Allesamt mit großer Geschichte hier in Thüringen.
So, da es jetzt nicht mehr so lange dauert, bitte an unsere Zuschauerinnen und Zuschauer in den Blöcken G, H und I dort bitte unsere Flucht- und Rettungswege entsprechend freihalten.
So, a very, very warm welcome to everyone joining us here as we bring you some live training of the German national team in Thüringen, a beautiful part of Germany and the home of the German national team while they get ready for the upcoming Euros on home soil. So a big warm welcome to everyone joining us on YouTube, Twitch, wherever you might be. Feel free to get involved with the discussions here as well. A fantastic occasion and something put on nicely by the national team for the fans. Plenty of tickets sold for this as well. We are in Jena in Germany, a beautiful part of the country and a great place and chance for some of the fans to see some of their favourite players in action with just a few weeks still to go before the Euros well and truly gets underway here in Germany. Can Germany go for a 4th European title? They have 3 already. Their last, however, coming all the way back in 1996 in England. And plenty of Germany fans hoping that this will be the year that they can, well, not bring it home because they are at home, but win it at home and give Germany's fans something to shout about after what has been perhaps not the most of successful periods for the Germany side, but based on recent performances, very recent especially, they are looking like they might just be back to their best. And that can only spell danger for everyone else involved. A big hello to everyone joining us as well. You can see we've got people from Nepal, Malaysia, all over the world tuning in to enjoy this live training session, which will get underway in just a few minutes, so don't worry. A quick reminder of the current Germany squad. Of course, there could still be 1 or 2 changes to that squad before the actual tournament gets underway. But let's take a look at the goalkeepers. We have Hoffenheim's Oliver Baumann, still uncapped for the national team. Manuel Neuer, of course, 117 caps for him. He will probably not be involved today. He's suffering from a slight virus, but shouldn't stop him from being in action in the actual tournament itself. And of course, we have Alexander Nübel, the Stuttgart keeper, also uncapped so far. And then Germany's number 2 with 40 caps to his name, Barcelona's Marc-Andre ter Stegen. Fans from Canada and Indonesia in the chat as well. Great to have you here. Thank you for joining us. Moving on to the defenders available to Julian Nagelsmann. Stuttgart's Waldemar Anton, Leipzig's Benjamin Henrichs, Bayern Munich's Joshua Kimmich, Eintracht Frankfurt's Robin Koch. Then we have Maximilian Mittelstädt, one of the more less experienced players in the midfield selection. Just 2 caps to his name, but 1 goal in those 2 appearances so far. David Raum from Leipzig as well. And Antonio Rüdiger from Real Madrid's, Borussia Dortmund's Nico Schlotterbeck, and of course Bayer Leverkusen's Jonathan Tah, who has had a fantastic season with Xabi Alonso's Bayern 04. German champions, DFB-Pokal winners and Europa League finalists as well. Tom Mart from Nova Scotia joining in the chat as well. We've got fans from Bangladesh, Myanmar, Hungary. Great to have you all here. Thank you for joining us. And the Living Room Bar in Dublin says a big hello as well. A big hello back to everyone in the Living Room Bar. Moving on to the midfield that Julian Nagelsmann has at his disposal as well. Robert Andrich, another player from that Leverkusen side, just 3 caps to his name. But something tells me he could have a big part to play, especially with the season he's put together at club level. Then the young Chris Führich at Stuttgart, formerly a BVB or Borussia Dortmund reserve team player, then made the move to Stuttgart, and it really has springboarded his career and given him a chance to break into the national team. Just 3 appearances for him at international level as well. And we have Pascal Gross, who's been flying the German flag high in the Premier League over in England for a number of years now with Brighton. Barcelona's İlkay Gündoğan, who is not joining up with the team just yet. The same goes for those Bayer Leverkusen players as well, having just played the DFB-Pokal final. As for İlkay Gündoğan, the La Liga ending a little later than other European leagues as well. And then, of course, the Real Madrid players also affected by that. Finally, the Borussia Dortmund players unavailable because they, of course, are in the Champions League final against Real Madrid. Should be an absolute cracker, that. So then we have Jamal Musiala and Alexander Pavlovic, two very young and exciting players from Bayern Munich. Musiala, albeit very young, already has 27 caps and 2 goals for his country. Alexander Pavlovic still waiting for his first appearance, but that could happen sooner rather than later. Then, of course, we have Leroy Sané, one of the more experienced midfielders, or attacking midfielders if you like, and Florian Wirtz, arguably one of the most exciting young midfielders, not just in German football, but European and possibly even world football at the moment. Incredible season. Did have a few injuries towards the end of the campaign, but certainly played his part in what was a historic season for Bayer Leverkusen. Then we move on to the attacking players. We have Maximilian Bayer, the only attacking player uncapped. Niklas Füllkrug, still away with Borussia Dortmund, getting ready for that Champions League final. Arsenal's Kai Havertz, who has rejuvenated his career since that move from Chelsea to Arsenal. Thomas Müller, the most experienced player out there with Toni Kroos probably. And then Dennis Undav, who did pick up his first cap during the last international break, the Stuttgart striker, with a really good season of his own. Tom Martz in the chat asking where this training session is being held. This is in Jena, and the Jena Football Stadium. Fans from Argentina, South Africa, Vietnam, Puerto Rico. Great to have you all here. Thank you for joining us. Abdi edits with a lot of love for Kroos and Müller. So Abdi edits, a fan of the old guard, but it is a nice mix, this team now, with some experience, some fresh blood, and everything in between. And their last 2 performances, both friendlies, very impressive indeed. And Julian Nagelsmann, I think, with a point to prove, aiming to try and bring Germany back to greatness, having dominated on the European and world stage for a really good spell not too long ago, and almost lost their way a little bit. It's been a bit of a rebuild project, but things definitely looking like they are on the up. Also with the team today, 2 youngsters brought in from the under-21 side, Brian Gruda and Rocco Reitz, 2 very exciting young players. Whether or not they'll be part of the final squad, I'm not so sure, but here to gather a bit of experience and make up the numbers for this open training session, which really has mustered up quite the attendance. Just goes to show how ready the German fans are for the Euros, as are all of you as well, I'm sure. Adam Farago, Rocco Reitz is there. Yes, he is. He has joined up with Brian Gruda. Both those youngsters called up by Julian Nagelsmann. And both will have a chance to impress. Sabrina, hi from Brazil. Hello back. Love from India as well. Fantastic mix of nations. Tom Martz. This German squad has great potential. I would have to agree, especially with the way they've played recently. Their two most recent friendlies, really strong performances there. And I think they've got a really nice mix and balance of young and exciting talent, pace and power in that regard as well. But then plenty of experience in that squad to match that. And I think that could spell quite a few problems for a lot of their opponents. Germany on the home soil, we've seen it go well for them. We've seen it go against them in tournaments. Personally, I think it could be a really big help for them as well. I think the players and the management not quite under as much pressure as recent squads and managers might have been. So a little less pressure, a little less expectation there. And all of a sudden that then allows them to perhaps sort of be a little more free in their approach and could bring the best out of them. We've seen that with teams, well, I think England is a really good example for that as well. A team who's always under pressure, big things always expected, and then they never really seem to deliver. And only recently, when Gareth Southgate then took over, we saw that pressure and expectation sort of just drop a few levels, and the response was better performances from the national team as well. And I think it could be a similar story for this German team as well. Let's have another look in the chats. Do you think Hummels not in the squad was a good idea? That's a great talking point. I mean, Mats Hummels, a Champions League finalist again with Borussia Dortmund, played a massive part in getting them there. Does bring a lot of experience, does bring well, a world of talent. I think there's no denying that. But don't know, it's a really tough one. I'm 50-50 on it, if I'm completely honest. Let me know what you guys think. Should Mats Hummels be in the squad? Explorer 1299 certainly thinks he should have been. Will there be any ceremony for Kroos's retirement? Toni Kroos, what a player he is, and what a career he has had, and a career that just keeps on giving. I think he could be absolutely pivotal for Germany in that central midfield. And I don't think his career is necessarily going to be over. I mean, I know he's talking about retirement, talking about this could be his last tournament with Germany. Something just tells me he's still got a little bit left in the tank. Might we see him perhaps venture off to the MLS or something like that? We'll have to wait and see. Destan has a lineup for us. I'd go for Neuer, Kimmich, Tah, Mittelstädt, Rüdiger, Kroos, Groß, Gündoğan, Musiala, Wirtz and Havertz. Interesting front three there, very young. Apart from Havertz, probably the more experienced out of those three, but Musiala and Wirtz, well, I think it's hard to keep them out of the side, isn't it, with the seasons they've been having. Musiala probably one of the few shining lights Bayern Munich have had this season, in what has been a very disappointing season for them, but Musiala really has stood out with his performances, goals, assists, just overall play. Really, really exciting player with an incredible future in the game, so I can't argue with having him in there. Wirtz, again, I'd have to say the same. As a creative attacking player, probably one of the best Germany have, and probably one of the best Germany have had in a while. And that's no disrespect to those who came before. It's simply a compliment to Florian Wirtz and what he can bring to the table. And then Havertz, you know, I had my doubts about Kai Havertz, I'm not going to lie. I thought he lost his way a little at Chelsea. And initially thought that was maybe down to the player, maybe he'd lost his love for the game, the motivation wasn't quite there, but those thoughts of mine were then quickly put to bed when he made the move to Arsenal, where he became the old Kai Havertz, the Kai Havertz that was scoring for fun in the Bundesliga, back to his best, if not even a level better now under Arteta and with Arsenal, and played a huge part in them, well, pushing Man City all the way to the last day of the season and very nearly becoming Premier League champions themselves. So Kai Havertz in there for a front three, you know, I think it's a really good shout. A really good shout. Who is playing in central midfield? Manuel asks. Well, there's a number of options available. We did go through the team just before, but let's have another look at it here. Robert Andrich, who for me has been pivotal for Bayer Leverkusen. You can't argue with their season, a record-breaking one for Bayern 04. Chris Führig, to me, probably won't be a starter, although he has really sort of come into his own this season with Stuttgart, but perhaps a tournament too early for him. Pascal Gross, well, you can't argue with him. He's a regular for Brighton. Still only 5 caps for the German national team, can you believe? But Julian Nagelsmann, a big fan. İlkay Gündoğan, well, I think no one will ever question his pedigree and what he can do. Then Toni Kroos, the same goes for him. And then we have Jamal Musiala, as already mentioned, although I'd say he's probably more of an attacking player. Alexander Pavlovic, now he uncapped, but could have a big part to play. Florian Wirtz and Leroy Sané, the other two as well. Some of those a little more defensive, holding midfielders, the others a little more attacking, as we see some of the players now making their way out onto the pitch. Kai Havertz there, and the 2 youngsters called up from the under-21s on screen just a moment ago as well. Brian Gruda and Rocco Reitz. Great day for them, and a great way to pick up some experience and learn about the setup. That's where they want to find themselves in years to come, and a great chance for them to impress but also enjoy themselves out here in Jena. So let's have another look at the chat again. Leon Goretzka is not in the squad, Ishan Pandey asks. No, currently not part of Julian Nagelsmann's setup. Of course, the squad is not definite just yet. There could be some changes to it before the tournament happens. There are players on call as well, should injuries come into play and become a problem for Nagelsmann. But as things stand, the players you see out there, apart from those missing due to obligations at club level, will be the players going to the Euros as well. Belhue, I think Schlotterbeck will be pushing into a pivot position with Gross. Well, he does have that ability, doesn't he, Schlotterbeck? He showed at Borussia Dortmund that he is very much a modern defender slash central defender. He's a very versatile defender as well. He can play on the left side of a back 3. He can play as a left back if push comes to shove in a back 4. He can play inside a central defence in a back 4 as well. But very much a modern central defender with his ability on the ball, his vision, his distribution in terms of passing. He's very comfortable on the ball, really good close control, and really precise passing and distribution as well. Gone are the days of the old school centre-backs that were there to perhaps get the tackle in and then hoof the ball upfield and hope for the best. No longer is that the norm in football. So Schlotterbeck could definitely almost do what a John Stones at Manchester City can do as well. Sort of pop up into a midfield position, play a holding midfield and get involved there. Schlotterbeck also has pace on his side and has that height and upper body strength, which can play a big part in those midfield battles against certain opponents as well. So good shout there, Schlotterbeck definitely could, although I haven't seen Nagelsmann really utilise him in that way so far. However, when you get to a tournament and then yellow cards, red cards, injuries come into play, sometimes you have to adapt and adjust, and Schlotterbeck would allow you to do that, absolutely. Is Maximilian Bayer there? Maximilian Bayer is there with the squad as well. The Hoffenheim forward, yet to make his first appearance at international level. And whether or not he'll be at the Euros as well, we'll have to wait and see. Of course, Germany do have 2 friendlies coming up before the Euros get underway. The first of those on the 3rd of June, an 8:45 kickoff Central European time. So an evening game. Germany hosting the Ukraine. And then 4 days later, another friendly against Greece, which should be a really good watch as well, and a last chance for Nagelsmann to have a look at his squad and sort of fine-tune it before the action gets underway on the 14th of next month against Scotland in that opening Group A game. So let's have another look at the chat here as well. Best position for Havertz. That's an interesting one. He's such a versatile forward player. Personally, I tend to like him in a wide position. I think when he's left on his own up front as a sort of a lone striker or the target man in a front three, you almost dampen his other contributions, which are so important, because he has pace. He's extremely technical. He's got fine deliveries as well into the box as well, and he's great at bringing others into play. And I think when he plays out in a wide position, he's so good at sort of disguising the actual pace and power that he does have, and can pull players out of position so well. He can cut inside, he can stay out wide. I think he's more effective in those sort of wide positions, coming inside or linking up with players out on the wing, and then when the ball or play is on the opposite side, drifting into a more central position and then becoming that second forward in the box or just on the edge of it. I think that's where I think he's probably at his best. However, the fact that he is one of the attacking players selected comes as no surprise, because he then, which is important at tournament level, gives you the option, or gives you those options. So he can play in a wide position, but then should he be needed to, can also lead the line up front, play as a lone striker up front, hold the ball up because he has that height and aerial presence as well. So a great addition to the squad, and I think it's his versatility that makes him almost a must for me in terms of starting lineup, especially with the season he's had at Arsenal as well. So thanks for the question, Gabriel, and thank you for joining us here as well. Will Werner be added into the team in the near future? Well, it's I'd say it's not impossible, but not very probable. I think at the moment Nagelsmann has too many players in similar positions that I think he probably is willing to rely on a little more. I think Timo Werner has a great history with the German national team. He's a proven goal scorer in more leagues than just the Bundesliga. But I think there are players in his position that have probably just performed that little bit better, with him changing club sort of mid-season as well. I don't think that's helped his chances. But only time will tell. It's, as said, it could still happen, and he's probably one of the players on the short list as well, should an injury come in and mean that someone else probably can't take part. But then, of course, there is also the chance that Nagelsmann instead goes to some of the under-21 players, like the two joining today, Brian Gruda and Rocco Reitz. Brian Gruda, still just 19 years old, currently with Mainz. Really, really exciting young player. Plenty of experience for international teams, all the way back to the under-15s and all the way up to the under-21s. Has scored for the under-18s, under-19s and under-21s as well. So definitely a player we'll be seeing in a Germany first-team shirt at some stage. Whether it'll be at the Euros, I'm not so sure though. And then, of course, Rocco Reitz as well. Another really exciting young player, 21-year-old, who is currently with Borussia Mönchengladbach. And, yeah, another really, really exciting player. Not quite as experienced, only 5 international caps, one of those at under-16 level, the other 4 at under-21 level. But in those 4 appearances, has found the back of the net twice already. And it's performances like that that have excited that man Julian Nagelsmann, and performances like that find him here training with the first team in this open live training. The players just limbering up still. Looks like there might be perhaps a few shooting exercises for the fans to enjoy here as well. My guess will be there'll probably be a little small-sided game towards the end. On top of that, Leroy Sané, fantastic player. One of those players that on his day, probably one of the best in the business. Some would say consistency in his performances, perhaps the only downside to Leroy Sané, but at a tournament, it is all about form and confidence, and if he can find that early, then he will give defences a world of trouble, you can believe me, because when he's moving at full pace, he's also got the ability to keep the ball at his feet and comes up with some fantastic finishes. Got such power behind some of his shots, but then such finesse with others, so really excited to see what he can do. Let me get back to the chat here. Gundogan is a good central attacking midfielder and central midfielder, and is best suited to be a number 8 or box-to-box midfielder. Yeah, Gundogan, another player who could be so pivotal for Germany. Really has aged like a fine wine. Ilkay Gundogan just seems to be getting better with every year he adds to his age. The same could be said for Toni Kroos, who for me is still one of the best midfielders in the world, and arguably one of the best to ever do it in that position. Hello from Colombia. Nice to have you here, Jorge Gomez. Who is the captain now, Neuer or Müller? I think Manuel Neuer will carry the captain's armband, but I think Thomas Müller, a good shout for vice-captain. Of course, the final decision will be made just before the tournament kicks off. Finns Gaming, Musiala is the best youngster in the world right now. Well, he's up against some stiff competition in that department, but I think he's definitely in the conversation. I mean, what a young man he is in terms of ability, proving himself in one of the best squads in the Bundesliga, even if the squad as a whole hasn't quite performed the way you'd have expected it to this season. But still, for a player that young to not only break into that first team, but then be one of its best players, just goes to show the potential that is there. And I think the sky's the limit for Musiala. Gattuso asking, will Füllkrug start the first group game? Well, that's a really good question. I think he's probably one of the more likely candidates to start up front. The other options being Maximilian Bayer, Kai Havertz, Thomas Müller and Dennis Undav. I wouldn't be surprised to see Füllkrug up there, especially with the season he's had at Borussia Dortmund. Top of the goal-scoring charts for them. One of the main reasons they find themselves in the Champions League final. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see him up front. A question: who is Julian's assistant manager? Kiwalabye Simon. That would be Sandro Wagner, former German international himself. A lot of love from Bangladesh. Ligma asking, do you think this will be Müller's last tournament? Well, you never know with Thomas Müller. He doesn't seem to be slowing down anytime soon, does he? Could be. Well, probably will be. But you'd hate to see him go. I mean, when it's in terms of accomplishments, not just at club level, but at international level as well, Thomas Müller could be one of the best players Germany has ever had. And I think Bayern Munich will say the same about him for them. But yes, could possibly be his last tournament. Rian Ranga, Müller or Neuer or Kroos deserve to be the captain for this team. Well, I think all three would be the first candidates, but as far as I understand, it will be Manuel Neuer, and doesn't come as too much of a surprise though, does it? Will Müller have completed football if he wins the Euros with Germany this year? Well, I think you'd have to say so, yeah. I know in my lifetime, I can't think of too many players with as many accolades as Thomas Müller. Such a humble guy as well, from humble origins, and I think that shows in the way that he approaches the game. But having him there, even if he doesn't play as many minutes as he might have in the past, I think just having a character like that amongst some of the younger players or some of the more inexperienced players can make such a difference. Someone who's been there, done it all before, but can also come off the bench and give you 20 incredible minutes. In terms of effort and input, I mean, it doesn't get much better than Thomas Müller, and his will to win, regardless of the situation, is second to none. So an absolute GOAT, as Vian says in the chat as well. A question here about who the current goalkeeper coach is. Well, there's two for Germany. Andreas Kronenberg and Michael Fuchs are the two goalkeeper coaches, so I hope that helps out. Do you think Havertz deserves some praise? Luluwa Nasser from Q8 asks, yes, he does. We were just talking about Kai Havertz and the season he's had with Arsenal. I think he's definitely deserved all the praise he's gotten, and it's great to see him back at his best. So thanks for the question. Just going through some of the chats again. Gundogan, does he play better in a 6 or 8 role? Personally, I like Ilkay Gundogan more in a slightly more attacking role. I think he's just so tricky. He has the eye for that final ball, and also it gives him the chance to sort of arrive late in the box, like some of the all-time great goal-scoring midfielders used to do and still do. And I think Gundogan, such a great link-up player in midfield, but then also he's the kind of player who can get you anywhere between 10 and 15 goals a season from that position as well. So I think the contributions in a more attacking position outweigh the contributions in a more defensive position for me. So I would have him just slightly more forward. So let's go through a few more questions here. Do you think Neuer should be captain? Well, I think he's definitely has to be in the conversation. He's one of Germany's most capped players, one of their most experienced players. It's got to be him or Kroos for me. And that would be my choice, but thankfully it's not a choice I have to make. Will be. Who do you think are the favourites to win the tournament? Oof, that is a really tough one. I think Germany are definitely in that conversation as well. I think with the home fans, the less pressure than they would normally have. I think all that works in their favour. I think they've got a really exciting squad and team. I think if you look at the success of German football at club level this season, how far teams have gotten in competitions. You know, we've got Europa League finalists, we've got Champions League finalists, a number of teams in the German Bundesliga this season qualifying for Europe again. I think it all points in one direction, and I think a lot of these players are going to be coming into this tournament very confident, very self-assured, and eager to impress and perhaps raise a few eyebrows as well. I think they're the kind of players that are up for the challenge rather than scared about the pressure. And I think that's shown in their last two friendlies and the way they've performed. I also think with Julian Nagelsmann, they've got a really exciting young coach who's equally out there to prove a point, someone who I think sort of lives off the pressure. I think it's both he and the players he has at his disposal are the kind of personalities that sort of thrive in that sort of a situation. And I think personally, I expect big things from Germany at the Euros this summer. Then I think possibly standing in their way or up there with them. I think France is a team you always have to take seriously at an international tournament, whether it's a World Cup or a Euros. Yes, they have had tournaments in the past where they've gone missing all of a sudden, but those are few and far between, and I think more often than not you'll find them in the mix going for the title come the final four teams or so. I think England are in with a really good shout of getting far at the tournament as well. So I think those would be my top three, with Spain probably coming in fourth as well, in terms of the teams that I think are in with a really good shout of winning it this summer. I think they all have exciting squads, good managers, good mentality, and players who are really in form at club level in their domestic leagues. So those would be my four. But feel free to get involved. Let me know who you think is going to win the Euros. How far can Germany go? Is Julian Nagelsmann the manager to bring glory back to the German national team? Let's have another look at some of these comments here. Sabin Füllkrug is more of a proper number 9 than Havertz, though. Totally agree. Totally agree. Depends how you want to play, really, I suppose. Do you want that target man like Füllkrug up front? Very different sort of players, aren't they? I mean, Füllkrug is more of an old school number 9. Havertz more of a modern forward who can play anywhere across a front three. I think it depends on the opponent. I think it depends on the situation in the game as well. I mean, one thing Füllkrug is amazing at is just holding up play, and sometimes you feel like he's gone missing in a game, although he hasn't. He does the things that people perhaps don't see, don't recognize, don't appreciate as much. You know, the hard and dirty work that no one likes to write headlines about. I think Füllkrug really sums that sort of a situation up really well, and can sort of play 60 minutes where you feel like he hasn't really done much, but then pops up with a goal, and then you watch the highlights and you realize that the other two goals scored by Borussia Dortmund or Germany all came through him, his hold-up play, his good upper body strength to sort of ride off challenges and tackles and just keep play flowing, allowing other players to then come in and be involved either side of him, be that in wide positions or through the middle as well. So, yeah, it's a good shout. I wouldn't be surprised if Nagelsmann does start Füllkrug up front as the main man, leading the line. And perhaps Havertz in a sort of wide position out left. I mean, having both of them on the pitch, what's wrong with that as well, right? Moukoko should play. Well, he does play at under 21 level. Scores goals for fun there. I don't think we'll see him at the Euros, though. What else do we have? John Williams. Bayer should be ahead of Füllkrug. Well, you're probably not the only person to think that. I mean, if you think of the season Maximilian Bayer has had It's, well, one to really take note of. The Hoffenheim forward in scintillating form, but doesn't quite have the experience at international level. Of course, yet to make his first cap for the German national team, and I think it's that lack of experience which will see him, if he is in the final squad for the tournament, probably starts from the bench rather than be in the starting 11. How about prediction for the starting lineup for first group match? Nagelsmann will choose double forward Füllkrug and Havertz, or just Füllkrug with two attacking wingers on the left and the right. I think a front three is probably more likely. But that doesn't mean that Füllkrug and Havertz can't still be involved, as just mentioned. I mean, you could have the likes of Wirtz probably playing maybe out in a wide right position, or a front three of Havertz out on the left, Füllkrug leading the line up front, Leroy Sané out on the right, and then even have a Florian Wirtz sort of in behind that front three if you want to be really aggressive and really attacking. Something I think Germany can afford to do against Scotland in the opening game. I think you really have to go for it. You want to get off to a really strong start. I think a high-scoring win, there's nothing better for you at an international tournament, especially in front of your home fans and on home soil as well. You know, get that confidence running through the veins of each and every player nice and early, and then build on that. Have that be your foundation to go forward. I think you can't ask for more than that now. Does that mean if Germany don't necessarily perform well in their first game that they can't go on and win the tournament? No, of course not. I mean, look at Argentina at the World Cup. You know, losing to Saudi Arabia and then went on to become world champions. So it's not the be-all or end-all. However, I think it is something that Nagelsmann will be hoping for and aiming for, because it certainly will be a helping hand, but not decisive. Will Wirtz play Euros? Clauin asks. I think he'll definitely be there. Wirtz is not with the squad right now, having just won the DFB-Pokal with Bayer Leverkusen. He's been given a little bit of time to rest. His season was a little bit longer than some of the players out there here today. Another reminder for those of you who have just joined us, there are still some players away and on club duty. The Bayer Leverkusen players not here. The Borussia Dortmund players, they still have that Champions League final coming up. Same goes for the Real Madrid players. Toni Kroos, for example, and Ter Stegen and İlkay Gündoğan also not joining up, as the La Liga season a little longer than the German one. Michael G. Scott, who should start in goal between Neuer and Ter Stegen? Well, it's a question that has racked the minds of German fans for how many years now? I mean, some would say, I think many would say, that Germany are very, very fortunate in the goalkeeping department. I mean, they have some fantastic goalkeepers at their disposal. Marc-Andre Ter Stegen, the Germany #2 and Barcelona #1, 40 caps already. But, of course, has Manuel Neuer ahead of him, who's on 117 caps. Absolutely incredible. Second most cap player in this Euro squad. The most cap being Thomas Müller with 128. For me, I think you have to go with Manuel Neuer if he's fit. Simply because, say what you want, I think Manuel Neuer is still one of the best goalkeepers in the business. I mean, that semi-final in the Champions League, yes, it was a Manuel Neuer mistake that perhaps led to that goal, that famous goal now. But if you look at the game as a whole, the amount of saves he pulled off throughout that game, and I don't mean just normal saves, I mean like crunch time, clutch saves. I think Yes, they became then forgotten with the one mistake that he did make, but I think he did show that he was keeping Bayern Munich in that semi-final for lengthy periods of time, thanks to his antics in goal. And I think his experience and ability is still unmatched in terms of the goalkeeping department for the international team. So for me, you have to start Manuel Neuer if he's fit and available. I don't think you can get past him, really. But should Marc-Andre ter Stegen be given the opportunity, I don't think anyone's going to be too upset either, because he, in turn, is another world-class goalkeeper. So, yeah, not a decision I'd want to be making, but if I had to, I would probably go with Manuel Neuer, and this will probably be his last international tournament as well. So, could be one hell of a goodbye if Germany do well. Questions about, will you bring it live here? Will the Euros be live here? I'm guessing is the question. No, they will not. We're just bringing you the live training, possibly some of the friendlies as well, before the tournament kicks off. But the actual tournament itself will not be streamed live here on the German football channel. So the players seem to have finished off the warm-ups, the limbering up, a couple of rondos there as well. It looks like we might have some small-sided games to look forward to here as well. Of course, Julian Nagelsmann won't be giving too much away in terms of tactics, I'm sure, at this open live training here in Jena. But still, great for some of the fans to get a chance to see some of their favourite players out there on the pitch in action as well. And a great chance for the players to sort of get a sense of the excitement and the build-up to the tournament here in Germany. It's not too often you get to play at a big international tournament in your home country, so what an opportunity for some of these fans here. SSL clips. I've seen a few people asking what my name is. My name's William. Thank you for joining us here today. We hope you're enjoying the live stream. We hope you're enjoying getting involved in the chat, and I do apologize if I'm missing some of the questions or some of the comments there as well. I am doing my best to try and keep an eye on both the training session and everything you guys are adding in the chat as well. So I'll just take another quick look at the chat window here. Tushon Rafiu. Which pair of centre-backs would be better, Tah and Rüdiger or Schlotterbeck and Anton? Oof, that is a good question. I think for me, I'd actually go with Rüdiger and Tah, simply because at club level they've performed this season. They've gone above and beyond. Jonathan Tah especially with Leverkusen. I don't think anyone expected the season they've had. And as much as people talk about how good they've been going forward and the amount of goals they've scored, to go as many games as they did undefeated and to lose only one game all season, being in 3 different competitions, I think you have to say that the defence has played a massive role in that, and Jonathan Tah is a massive part of that defence. So for me, Jonathan Tah has been one of the brightest sparks in German football this season. I think he's elevated his levels to places I didn't even expect to see. I didn't see them coming. And I think he thoroughly would deserve, in my book, a starting position in central defence. And I think the best man to be his partner in crime in that central defence is probably Antonio Rüdiger. I think he's had a great season with Real Madrid. Again, has just picked up so much more experience as well. He's also a player that's played in a number of different leagues, and at a tournament, at an international tournament, that can be a great asset out on the pitch as well. And I think they're both players who can not only deal with pressure, but almost thrive in those sort of situations, and it brings the best out of them. So I think those would be my 2 choices in central defence. Thank you for the question. Let me see what else I can find here. which Stuttgart player has a chance to start for Germany. I think Maximilian Mittelstädt in defence is probably the best shout. Chris Führig, as already mentioned, I'm not sure if he'll be in the final squad or not. Has had a great season, but still only 3 caps at international level. That lack of experience perhaps might dampen his chances at being in the final squad or getting a lot of game time. You could say the same about Maximilian Mittelstädt. However, I think there's probably less competition in his positions than there is in what is a very strong midfield available to Julian Nagelsmann. And then you have Dennis Undav up front. To me, he's more of a backup player for Nagelsmann. I even think Thomas Müller would probably start ahead of him or come off the bench ahead of him. Whereas Kai Havertz and Niklas Füllkrug are probably the 2 go-to players up front for Nagelsmann, if you ask me. Rian Ranga, are you Deutsch, William? I am not Deutsch, however, I have grown up in a German-speaking country my entire life, so maybe half Deutsch, shall we say. I do speak the language. So I hope that answers your question. Will Nagelsmann be the best dressed manager at the Euros? That depends on whether you like his style or not, I suppose. Some would argue already he's probably one of the best dressed managers in the business. For me, some of the outfits are a little too fancy and a little too fashionable, but maybe that's just me. However, at the end of it all, I don't really care what he's wearing as long as he gets the job done and Germany perform well. I think that's what he'll be judged on. But Julian Nagelsmann's dress sense and fashion sense always part of the conversation, no matter what the occasion. Am I right? Ivan Raimi starts Süle along Rudiger. He's an absolute unit. Well, I wouldn't disagree with you there. He certainly is an absolute unit, but I don't think he'll be starting alongside Rudiger, as he's not even part of the squad at the moment, and it doesn't look like he's going to be. Where are the German training camps? Schrisch, I hope I'm saying that correctly, is asking. So they're currently in Jena in Germany here for this training session. But the training camp itself is in a place called Blankenhain, which is in Thüringen. So I hope that helps. And to be even more precise, the team are at the Spa and Golf Resort Weimarer Land in Thüringen. And that is where they'll be for the 2 friendlies coming up against the Ukraine and then against Greece before the Euros get underway midway through June. The 2 friendlies on the 6th of June, or excuse me, the 3rd of June and the 7th of June. So the 3rd of June is against the Ukraine. That's an 8:45 kickoff Central European time. And the game against Greece on the 7th of June, same kickoff time as well, also in Germany. Troy Michael. Mats Hummels, one of the best German centre-backs of all time. Complete disrespect. Yeah, well, I don't think you'll be alone there. I think there's plenty of Germany fans that will feel Mats Hummels should be in the squad. I'm sure there'll be just as many who think he shouldn't be. It's definitely a real discussion point, isn't it? And one that will go on during the Euros and after the Euros as well, depending on how well Germany do. Certainly has had an incredible season with Borussia Dortmund, hasn't it? In a season where a lot of, I think a lot of people thought he was probably, or probably had played his best games and put in his best performances, but Mats Hummels a BVB and Bayern Munich legend, more of a BVB legend if I'm completely honest. Well, just never ceases to amaze or surprise, does he? And as far as I know, or as far as I can remember, probably one of the best in the air as well. Such an aerial presence in the box, both defensively and offensively, but doesn't look like he's going to be part of the European Championships this summer. Will you support Borussia Dortmund in the Champions League final? It's a tough one. It's a tough one. I have always had a soft spot for Borussia Dortmund. However, I'm also a big Zinedine Zidane fan, and so Real Madrid also has a place in my heart. Let's put it this way: I won't be depressed no matter who wins. But I am really looking forward to that final. I think it's going to be an absolute cracker. William, will Germany be able to break the group stage curse? Well, we certainly hope so, don't we? I think they probably, in terms of the teams they've been, well, not given, because no one's given anything at an international tournament, but the teams they've been selected alongside, shall I say, has given them a really good chance of making it out of the group. I think especially the first two games against Scotland and Hungary are games that they could and maybe even should win. I think Switzerland will be the toughest encounter. That's their third game and also their final group game, which, depending on how the first two go, I mean, fingers crossed they go well, but let's say they don't, then and they have to pick up points or need to win that last game against Switzerland, that could be a tough one, because I think Switzerland are a very underrated side. I think they've shown in recent years that they're a team on the up. They've got a lot of really talented players playing at a very high level around the world and around Europe at club level. I think Granit Xhaka, perfect example at Leverkusen, you know, another player who, after leaving Arsenal, a lot of people probably thought, well, we've probably seen the best from him, and then goes on to become German champion and DFB-Pokal winner, very nearly Europa League winner as well. Who else? I mean, in the goalkeeping department, they've got some fantastic goalkeepers at their disposal as well. And just a really underrated team for me. So I think it's important for Germany to pick up maximum points in those first two games, and then they don't have to worry about that last game against Switzerland. Although, again, it is a game I think Germany probably should win on paper. But let's just hope they don't make that a do-or-die match, shall we say. I think that's the most important thing. Where is Julian Brandt? Julian Brandt not with the squad at the moment. Whether or not he'll be in the final squad, also question mark there. But because he has the Champions League final to look forward to with Borussia Dortmund, he and other players involved with those two teams, Borussia Dortmund and Real Madrid, not with the national team here today. Do you think Wirtz will join Bayern in 2025? Well, I think not just Bayern Munich will be trying to sign Florian Wirtz in the seasons to come. I think he'll probably stay with Leverkusen for as long as Xabi Alonso does, and then possibly move elsewhere. But I don't think he'll be going anywhere this summer anyway. Not unless someone comes in with crazy money for him, then we might see him make the move. We might see Leverkusen try and cash in, but can't see that happening. And I'd quite like to see a full season from him at Leverkusen, playing in the Champions League as well. I think there's still more to give and more to come for Bayern 04, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Florian Wirtz move on elsewhere in the not so distant future, but not this summer or next. But then again, you never know in football, do you? Anything is possible, and with some of the money thrown around these days, God knows what will happen. I hope to see him at Leverkusen for another season or two, at least, though. And then, yeah, up to him to see what he does next. David Darkness believes Portugal will win the Euro. Tell you what, as far as dark horses go, I think it's a really good shout. If you look on paper, Portugal's team is... it's actually quite mouth-watering. I mean, they have some amazing talent in that team, and always seem to show up at the Euros, don't they? whether or not Cristiano Ronaldo will be managing from the sideline again, we'll have to wait and see. Portugal always good for entertainment in that regard. But yeah, I tell you what, if I had to pick a fifth team after my top four, I think Portugal would probably be in there. And be interesting to see how they get along. Which football club do you support? It's a good question. It's a team in the Premier League. I'll let you guys do some guessing. And if anyone guesses it, I'll let you know. I'll give you a clue. It's not a team in the top three this season. William, thoughts on Germany's kits? Personally, I really like them. I think they're really, really good. They look great, nice and clean. Really clean, professional look. And I think the players are going to be feeling good and looking good at the Euros this summer. Messi or Ronaldo? Oh no, you're not going to do that to me. I'm not going to answer that question. I'm going to answer it politically, and in the same way I usually do. I don't choose one or the other. I'm simply happy to have been alive with both of them doing the business. Amsterdam is the best. Saying, what do you think of the Netherlands? I reckon quarterfinals. I think, the Netherlands, it's a mixed bag. It really is. Again, could be one of those dark horses or a team that'll do better than expected. I don't quite know what to expect from the Netherlands. I think, again, on paper, they've got really exciting young players who could do really well, but then I wouldn't be surprised if they just have a bad tournament as well. So, and to be absolutely fair and honest, I haven't seen enough of them recently to give you an educated answer there. So we'll have to see. What have we got? Some of the guesses: Chelsea, Everton, Brighton. Nope, and no one's guessed it just yet. Head a little further north. Aston Villa, no, not them. Not Tottenham either. Not Nottingham Forest, no. Not too many left. What do I think about Belgium? It's an interesting one because Belgium really is a fantastic team. But they just never seem to be able to do the business on the big stage. They almost remind me of the so-called golden era for England that had Lampard, Gerrard, all of those world-class players, Ashley Cole, sort of on paper, absolutely incredible team, but then on the pitch just never really did it. And I hate to say it, but Belgium seems to remind me of them every time I watch them play. Well, we've got a number of you guessing Newcastle, and you're absolutely right. Newcastle United is the English team I support, shall we say. Elton Nguyen, what are my thoughts on Hungary this year? To be honest, I think they could. Well, it's hard to say. I mean, they've got some exciting players, they really do. Whether or not they'll be able to do it on the big stage, I mean, they've earned their spot at the Euros, well and truly. And they could be the surprise team in that group. I don't see Scotland getting out of the group. I think the favourites for me to go through are Germany and Switzerland. Hungary, then probably the third favourite to go through. Although I think it might just be a step too far for them this time. But they do have a lot of exciting young players in their team, and I can see them being more of a threat in the future. But I may stand corrected come the group stage. Just going through some of the questions here. A lot of them flying in now. Most of them guesses of who I support. Thank you for all the guesses. And congratulations to the likes of Clerix, Mainsman, Kwangdong Nguyen, Amsterdam is the beste, Brown Kamwimbi. All guessing Newcastle United. Well done. What else have we got? What German player is in their prime? Good question. It's almost a mix of players that are sort of edging towards their prime and coming into their prime, and then players who, well, you don't want to say past their prime, but more experienced, shall we say. In terms of players in their prime, I mean, I suppose you could argue age-wise Leroy Sané is a player who's in his prime. Age-wise, I'd say Kai Havertz is probably in his prime. Apart from that, the rest, I think, still have their prime ahead of them, which for some of them is really exciting, like players like Musiala and Wirtz. And others, well, you'd say on paper are past their prime, but then, as we said before, players like Gundogan and Toni Kroos playing some of the best football of their career, and on paper are past their prime. So I'd say in their prime, for me, probably Havertz or Sané, and out of the two, I'd probably have to go with Kai Havertz, I think, just based on consistency. Just having a look again at some of the questions here. Group of death at the Euros. Well, I mean, Group B's got to be a contender for it, hasn't it? I mean, Spain, Croatia, Italy, and Albania. I think that's going to be a really, really tough group. I mean, Spain, always a threat, always great players, always play amazing football. Croatia, I mean, one of the best European teams in terms of performance when it comes to international tournaments, be that a Euros or a World Cup. I mean, a country of that size with that population and what they have accomplished in the last 15, 20 years, and the players that they've produced. I mean, the likes of, I mean, just so many to pick from. I mean, Modric, probably the player that stands out most. Absolutely incredible. And I think, again, they will be contenders, another team. I mean, you almost call Croatia a dark horse every tournament, and then they go and surprise you by making it through to the Final Four or to the final. Or so I think Croatia there with Portugal, definitely dark horses to take it as well. Taking a look at the other groups. If we look at Group C, England, Serbia, Denmark, Slovenia. I think you have to go with England to be favourites there to go through. Second spot up for grabs, really, between Slovenia, Denmark and Serbia. Group D, Netherlands, France, Poland and Austria. I think France and the Netherlands, the favourites to go through, but then Poland, some exciting players there, Lewandowski and company, always a threat. And Austria, I mean, if you look at their squad, the only problem for Austria probably being they've got a number of big names injured just before the tournament as well, which might just dampen their chances to make it out of the group. Be interesting to see. If you look at Group E, Ukraine, Slovakia, Belgium and Romania. I think Belgium the favourites to go through there. Second spot again up for grabs. Group F, I think Portugal in a great position to go through with the Czech Republic, Georgia and Turkey in the group with them. So, yeah, looking at the groups, pretty straightforward, but it never really is once the tournament starts. So we'll have to see exactly how it all unfolds. What's Kimmich's best position? Well, that's a question the whole of Germany has had. Personally, I think sort of a holding midfielder seems to fit him best. I know he's had a lot of success in a right-back position as well, at club and international level. I'm just not sure he's got the pace for the modern game, if you know what I mean. I don't know how I'd feel about Kimmich being up against, perhaps in the right-back position, and then being up against an Mbappe, shall we say. I don't think that's a battle I see him winning too often. However, in a sort of holding midfield position, I think he can be far more influential. I think he's got great distribution as well. Loves to play a long ball. Great switch of play in him as well. So personally, I'd play him in that sort of a role. But then again, a lot of competition in the squad in that position as well. And perhaps he might be one of the stronger options at right back. Let's just say I'm glad I'm not Julian Nagelsmann when it comes to picking the squad or the starting 11 for that first team. Let's have another look. Mainz man, what German club do you support? I'm a Borussia Dortmund fan. Grew up watching the likes of Lars Ricken, and when BVB won the Champions League, part of me became a Borussia Dortmund fan, and I used to love the neon yellow shirts that they used to have back in the day. I don't know if any of you can remember those, but they were just iconic for me, and ended up buying one of those, and have always followed BVB ever since. Havertz versus Füllkrug up front. I think we've talked about those quite a bit, so I don't want to bore you with that anymore. Who do you think the toughest opponent will be in the group stage? I think we've been over that as well. I think Switzerland will probably be the team to give Germany their toughest test, which can or could be worrying as well. Let's just hope that Germany aren't in desperate need of points going into that third game, which will be against Switzerland. Pluk, William, who's the most unique player right now in the German squad? For me, the most unique player would probably be, I think, Florian Wirtz. I think he's a real gem, and I can't wait to see what he can bring to the table. Such a versatile player as well. I think he can. I think with him in the squad, you can really sort of shape-shift your front three during a game as well, right? Or your front four. And if you have players like Kai Havertz, Florian Wirtz, Leroy Sané, you know, you can have players switch sides. You can have players like Havertz and even Sané drop into a number 10 role, and then Wirtz floats outside. I think when you have players like that in your 11, it gives you the chance to just really confuse defenses, never allow them to settle. You know, they're never going to be able to man mark and still keep their position or structure. I think that's something that Nagelsmann definitely has in mind with the squad he's selected. At least that's what it looks like, and I think it's the right move. I think it's the way to go. I think it's the way that football is progressing anyway. Although you have Niklas Füllkrug, which is a really old school number 9, I don't think it's bad to have one of those in your team. However, I think he is a dying breed, sadly. And it is a part of the game that will not be part of the game for that much longer, if you ask me. I think the modern game is pretty much having 3 wingers up front that can change positions and bring pace and ability on the ball, becoming much more important. I think you see that in the way central defenders are developing as well. Nico Schlotterbeck, the perfect example. You know, it's no longer just a big muscle pack at the back. You know, you need to be agile, you need to be quick, you need to be good on the ball. But that then, of course, means that your strikers no longer need to be incredible hulks either, and makes for a much faster game, a much more pacey game. So, yeah, I think Florian Wirtz probably going to be the most unique player in the squad. So let me just scroll down. Thomas Müller with a bandage on his left knee. That's something to take note of. Possibly more of a precautionary thing rather than anything to worry about. Elton Nguyen, who do you think is the fastest player in the German team? Well, I think Sane's got to be in the conversation, hasn't he? I mean, when he starts his engine, very, very hard to stop. Thomas Samot saying Müller definitely is the fastest. I'm pretty sure he doesn't mean that seriously. Favourite Euro stadium has to be the Dusseldorf Stadium. Oh, it's definitely in with a shout. I think that's one of the great things about having the Euros in Germany as well, is that you already have the infrastructure and so many iconic stadiums that it can only be a fantastic tournament. I mean, when the World Cup was there, it probably goes down for me in my lifetime as one of the better World Cups in terms of atmosphere, organisation. You know, Germany just do it right when it comes to that. So I expect exactly the same at the Euros. Should be fantastic, and I'll be at one or two of the games there as well. So really looking forward to that. Who knows, maybe a few of you will be able to enjoy it as well. What else have we got? Will Müller finally score at the Euros? You know what? If I was a betting man, I'd put my money on Müller finding the back of the net whenever he's playing. He's that sort of a player for me. But yeah, I think he might just. I think this might be the one. Anshuman Seal, what do you think about Kaiserslautern's run? Well, incredible. Imagine they would have won the DFB-Pokal. You'd have a team who at one point was fighting relegation in the second division of German football. I think they finished around about 13th, if I'm not mistaken. And had they won the DFB-Pokal, they'd be in the Europa League next season. What a story that could have been. But I think in the end, Leverkusen deserved the win. And with the season they've had, I think the double for them, very, very fitting at the end of the day. Alexandria, the second. What's your opinion of Hansi Flick and his German team? Do you think Nagelsmann will do better than him? Sort of mixed emotions about Hansi Flick and his tenure in charge of Germany, because I don't think it was ever going to be easy for him. I think when you sort of the next to follow after what was such a successful time for Jogi Löw, it was always going to be so difficult to fill those boots. And I think no matter who you are, I think some of the best managers in the world could have come in, and I don't think they were guaranteed an easy time, which is why I do think that Nagelsmann will probably have an easier time, and therefore probably a better and more successful time, because I think, as much as I hate to say it, Hansi Flick sadly had to sort of carry the disappointment, the frustration, the transitional period, and he had to take all of that on his chin. And now it's allowed Nagelsmann to come in under less expectation, with a little bit more of a good feeling, good vibes, if you know what I mean. And so I think he'll have an easier time as manager, and as a result I think it'll be easier for him to bring the best out of his players, and in turn I think their performances on the pitch will be better as well. So if that makes any sense, I think that's the way I'd break it down. So to sum things up, I think Nagelsmann will be more successful, but not because Hansi Flick is a bad manager. I think he was just he pulled the short straw, if you like, when it comes to coaching the national team. Is Tuchel a future coach? Well, who knows? Who knows? I think Nagelsmann is a great appointment, and really looking forward to see what he can bring to the table. And yeah, should be a great Euros. Jamal Musiala is one of my favourite players. Der Erwachsene, yeah, couldn't agree more and can understand why. How important do you think it is to bring players like Müller that are mainly going to be full team spirit? Felix N, thanks for the question. We did touch on that early on. I think players like Müller are absolutely vital. And I think if you look at teams in the past who've done well at international tournaments, there's always one or two old heads in the squad, sometimes in the starting lineup. And I think you need that. You need that mix of youth and experience, and then everything in between. And I think when you get that balance right, that's when you see teams go on and lift trophies. I think, as far as that is concerned, I think Germany are in a great place with some of the players they've got, because the old heads that they do have, like a Thomas Müller, a Toni Kroos, a Manuel Neuer. I mean, these are some of the best to ever do it, not just for Germany. I mean, we're talking about world football, and they've done it consistently throughout their career at both club and international level. And they just have that winner's mentality, you know, and I think that's something that everyone else will feed off, because it just comes naturally to them. It's not like it's not forced. When you've had that much success, it's not forced. It's just who you are, and I think that then means there's no ego behind it either. And if you're a teammate, especially a young teammate, and you're seeing that genuine confidence rather than being egotistical with it, I think that's something that you can only learn from, you can only feed off, and can only benefit you and your team as a whole. So that's what I'd say to that. Luke, William, do you play football? I used to, but the classic knee injury ended all of those dreams. So instead of playing the game, I just talk about it. Abdul Kaimai Mazumdar, do you have a YouTube channel? I do not have a YouTube channel. I usually find myself doing live commentaries and commentating things like this, which I really enjoy, because it gives me a chance to talk to some of you guys, the fans, and gives you a chance to get involved as well. But thank you for joining me, and thank you for joining us here today. Scrolling through a few more of the comments and question. SSL clips, you should never question Nagelsmann. Yeah, definitely, I'd have to agree. I think, not yet anyway, I think it's just too early. Huh? I mean, I think the time to judge him, if judge is the right word, that sounds a little harsh, I don't mean it like that, but the time to have an opinion, I think, is once we've seen him on the big stage. You know, yes, we've had a few friendlies and they've been positive, so I think he certainly deserves, shall we say, more positive vibes than criticism so far. But I think that any sort of opinion can only be justified once we see how Germany do at the Euros with him in charge at the helm. I think that'll be the real test, and then we'll see just what exactly Nagelsmann will bring to the table with Germany. It does look like the training session is pretty much over. Players out there just signing autographs. Nagelsmann in the center of your screen there as well. This is why tickets were sold for this open session. And I think that slowly but surely also brings an end to our live stream here. Let me just see if I can catch a few more questions from you guys. BVB for UCL. I think they're definitely in with a shout, although I think Real Madrid are probably favourites for that. Favourite match ever commentated? Well, let's see. Hopefully it'll be the Champions League final when BVB go on and win it. But we'll have to wait and see there as well. Why no pick Royce? Good question, especially with the end to the season he's had. Marco Reus, also a player who you feel never really sort of left with unanswered questions at international level, but sometimes just isn't meant to be. Do you think Kai Havertz has improved under Mikel Arteta? Vastly. I think he's a whole new player. Completely different player to the one that was at Chelsea, that's for sure. And more like the player we saw back in his Bundesliga days. What else have we got? Will this be Neuer's last tournament with the national team? You know what, who knows? In terms of goalkeepers, they just seem to keep on going. And if there's one player I wouldn't be surprised to see keep on going and keep delivering, it is probably Manuel Neuer, one of the best goalkeepers to ever do it. Just keep on going. Well, did Wirtz take part in this training session? Hazu, no, he did not. He's been given a bit more time off after his DFB-Pokal win with Leverkusen. Favorite Euro this century? Oof, that's a good one. I thought Euro 96 was a cracker, which is the last one that Germany actually went on to win. In England as well. I just love the atmosphere of that tournament, and always has a good place in my memory growing up, being absolutely football mad. Euro 96 was a good one. Plenty to talk about as well. Thoughts on Mittelstädt? Exciting player. I think the 2 chances and the 2 appearances he's had under Nagelsmann, he's taken his opportunity. He's got 1 goal in those 2 appearances as well. Yeah, what a season he's had as well. Extremely consistent. And I think those are the players you want to look to, is the ones that consistently deliver, which is why 1 or 2 big names probably not in the squad, and 1 or 2 other names are. Do you think a German will win the Ballon d'Or in the next 5 years? I think if anyone's in with a shout, probably maybe Musiala. I think he could possibly. What do you think of Odegaard? I've seen that question come up a lot of times. We are talking about the German national team here. But just to be quick, I think he's world-class player. Luke, William, what's your all-time Germany team? Oof, that is a fantastic question, and one that would require a lot more thought and research, because I would not want to embarrass myself by leaving someone out. So long is the list of German players that could probably go into that all-time 11. I'll tell you what, in goal though, it might be controversial, but I'd have Manuel Neuer ahead of Oliver Kahn. And I know that's going to raise some eyebrows in the chat, because Oliver Kahn is an absolute legend. But I don't know, there's something, Manuel Neuer, the amount of times I've seen him win games for club or country, absolutely incredible. And that's not to say that Oliver Kahn isn't an absolute legend in his own right, but for me, Neuer has to be one of the best to ever do it. Changed goalkeeping as well. If you think back, or if you watch goalkeeping now, the amount of goalkeepers that have to be good with the ball at their feet, have to be able to, just drop a shoulder to let a striker run past, play a short pass. No one was doing it before, when Neuer was the only one doing it. And I'm talking quite a few years ago, but maybe a few of you can remember. I remember I had friends going, what is he doing? What is he doing? And now every goalkeeper does it. And if you can't do it, then you're not going to be a professional goalkeeper anymore. So Manuel Neuer changed football for me in terms of goalkeeping. And everyone has followed suit ever since. So that's why for me, he'd definitely be in my all-time 11. As with Toni Kroos. That's as far as I'm going. That's as far as I'm going. What position do you prefer for Kimmich? I think we said that as well. For me, holding midfielder, I prefer him. I think he brings more in that position, but wouldn't be surprised to see him at right back either. Do you think Neuer is the best keeper of all time? Well, he's definitely... Okay, guys, well, that's going to wrap things up here. As the live training session comes to a close, a big thank you to all of you for getting involved in the chats. I hope I got to as many of your questions and comments as possible. It's been an absolute pleasure talking everything that is Die Mannschaft. Fingers crossed they can go on and do big things at the Euros and the 2 friendlies before that. But it's a big thank you from me. I hope you all do well. Hope you all join us for the Euros. And until next time, and as always, stay safe and take care.